KREM 2 News begins now.
It's been a busy week for news across the inland Northwest. Let's get you caught up with the KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Tim Pham. Thanks for joining us here on KREM 2 Plus. Here now is a look at some of the biggest stories from this past week.
To Washington, I bid you fair winds and following seas.
Governor Jay Inslee touting his accomplishments while calling on the new generation of politicians to stay the course.
Washington voters just sent a strong message that they want to continue the path we're building.
Inslee started his political career as a legislator out of the Yakima Valley some 35 years ago. He's the state's second three-term governor. In today's speech, Inslee spoke about his political victories, pointing to the capital gains tax and assault weapons ban and the abolishment of the death penalty.
Let's be clear. By this act, we are ending the death penalty in the state of Washington, period.
Though many argue he will be best remembered for his leadership over the course of the pandemic.
Even though post-COVID, we do know that there were consequences for the choices that he made, like students falling behind relative to schools that stayed open. But the death rate stayed a lot lower.
He fired healthcare workers.
State GOP Chairman Jim Walsh sees things differently, pointing to the thousands of state workers fired over the vaccine mandate that's since been repealed.
When the good people of Washington questioned his mandates and edicts during the COVID outbreaks, he punished them with all the power of the state.
Through his speech, Inslee also touted the paid family medical leave assistance program passed in 2019 and environmental stewardship, including the state's Climate Commitment Act, which set the ambitious goal of cutting 95% of greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050.
The secret of our success is we don't leave anybody behind. We follow the science and we work together to make extremely difficult decisions.
Ferguson inherits some issues, including a major budget deficit, and it appears he's wasting no time tackling them.
To the best of my ability.
In his first address as governor, Bob Ferguson pledged to meet challenges with action, starting with a $12 billion budget deficit.
Finding savings and efficiencies is a shared responsibility, and I am committed to that principle.
After 12 years serving alongside Jay Inslee, and though they come from the same side of the aisle, he's waved off Inslee's proposal of a wealth tax. Instead, Ferguson's calling on nearly every state agency to crunch numbers to look at budget cuts of around 6%. He says it could save $4 billion. But as he looks to save money, Ferguson promised to put money back into people's pockets.
Washingtonians need more housing, lots more housing. We must make it easier, faster, and less expensive to build housing of all kinds.
In one of 3 executive orders he immediately issued, Ferguson is directing an overhaul of regulations on housing, permitting, and construction. Another executive order will task the Department of Health with shoring up reproductive rights.
My administration will work with President Trump where we can. We will stand up to him when we must. And that most certainly includes protecting Washingtonians' reproductive freedom.
Ferguson also addressed Washington's dead last national ranking for the number of police officers, applauding District 6 Senator Jeff Holey's proposal to grant $100 million for law enforcement hiring.
Any budget I sign must include this funding. Thank you, Senator.
Ferguson's also working with another Spokane area senator, Marcus Rosselli, on a proposal to provide free school meals to all students. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News. From upping educator pay and another pass at private school vouchers to cutting red tape for affordable housing, Governor Little's plans for lawmakers in Boise could have huge impacts in North Idaho. Governor Brad Little says he's already rolled up his sleeves with lawmakers on several of his Keeping Promises plan priorities. One that tops his list is education, with $150 million in new funding floated for public schools. Little says that includes more pay for teachers and better health care.
Health benefits alone this year is about a $140 million item, so that if you work at a school district, you get the same good insurance that any state employee does. That is a huge help for these districts.
Districts like those in North Idaho, where he says it's more competitive with some educators moving to Washington. Idaho legislators are also taking another pass at a controversial school choice program, with Little suggesting $50 million go toward private school vouchers.
This new proposal is $50 million. They expect to know how that $50 million, who qualifies for it, how it's delivered, that there isn't a situation where people are double dipping.
He promised guardrails to keep it fair and transparent. Lawmakers are hashing out how to make that happen this session.
Right now, the proposal that I think has the most traction will be a tax credit.
A similar bill failed last year. Little also says better schools and infrastructure can help another problem plaguing North Idaho, the need for affordable housing. He teased legislative changes to streamline permitting that could come next month.
We know there are a lot of permits that are in local planning and zoning, city, county, that are in their inbox and they're not in their outbox. We want to do what we can do to improve that.
Little says the Gem State shines when it comes to cutting red tape and regulations, a facet that's attracted the attention of the Trump administration.
They have been reaching out to us because of what we've done from a regulatory standpoint, what we've done from a licensing standpoint.
He says his team's also been tapped by Trump to weigh in on upgrades to wildland firefighting and forest resiliency. Now back at home in Idaho, Governor Little is proposing $100 million for fire management, most of which would go to replenish the state's fire suppression fund. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
First responders from all across the country are in California fighting these historic fires. But during these evacuations, there are some people who may be wondering where their loved ones are as they try to stay safe. That's where a reunification specialist comes in.
For Red Cross volunteer Neetha Mogul, she says her work as a volunteer hits home after growing up in New Orleans.
For me, it was growing up around hurricanes. And I said that if I was ever going to be on the other side, I could give back instead of being the one needing help.
Mogul's working around the clock and has been for the last several days as a reunification specialist for the American Red Cross. This role helps in reuniting families and friends who may have been separated during evacuations. It starts with a call to the 800 Red Cross phone number.
And eventually it'll end up with someone like me, and I will make the contact with the clients, ask them, have you been in contact with your loved one? And then we work the case from there.
Mogul says in the few days she's been tasked in reunification, she's spoken with dozens feeling hopeless as they try to look ahead during growing devastation.
We can help reconnect families and friends from around the country, out of the country. We have people call us looking for someone. So we have the sought and we have the seeker, and we try to reconnect these folks.
Reconnect those whose homes may be destroyed and are seeking comfort in an uncertain time.
You have people from all walks of life, and they're just trying to reconnect with those that have been separated in the chaos of being evacuated.
It's work Mogul says is necessary, doing it from her home in Liberty Lake. That's something she says can be a plus.
Certain things you can't do remotely. The behind the scenes things we can. So I can sit here and I can do the reunifications. I can make the phone calls. I can dig on the internet and look for people.
Look for people in a time of crisis. As Mogul says, the need is only growing for those affected.
To alleviate human suffering is vital to Red Crossers. And it's the best job I've never been paid for.
For 60 years, Spokane company Aeroflight has been fighting fires from the sky. Now in the winter season, when it's their usual time for maintenance, they have been tasked to fight against the fires in Los Angeles.
Aeroflight says 2 more pilots and 2 more mechanics packed up their bags from Spokane to continue firefighting efforts in Southern California. They say this is their 6th crew to travel down to LA.
I talked to the crews this morning, and things have started to calm down a little bit right now. We are mostly in position if the winds do pick up, and I think they're forecasted to do that. And so we're pre-positioned at multiple different bases around Southern California right now.
I am told Aeroflight has a second facility in Chico, California, which is where crews stop first to grab their plane before making it to LA. But their general manager tells me they began sending planes last week.
And we're really in a support role for the ground firefighters. So what we use the aircraft for is to buy time. And so we try to build fire lines. We use water to cool the flames so that ground fire crews can get in and actually put the fires out.
And he notes there are only a few private companies that do this type of work.
Almost all of these airplanes that drop the red retardant are all civilian companies. It's not a government agency that does it.
Neiman says as soon as crews reach their destination, they begin dropping fire retardant.
The job is very rewarding. It's a job with purpose.
Neiman expects his crews to stay down there for as long as California is in need, but he says crews do switch off about every 2 weeks. In studio, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
We have received several questions about firefighters traveling to California to assist with wildfires being delayed or turned away. Verify viewers Deanne and Carol asked us to look into claims that fire trucks sent from out of state were being turned away because they didn't pass emissions tests.
Did you hear that California rejected 60 fire trucks that Oregon had sent over to fight out the Los Angeles fire?
So let's verify. Our sources are CAL FIRE and the Oregon State Fire Marshal. The Oregon State Fire Marshal poured cold water on this rumor on social media, saying, to be clear, this is false, adding there was no drama, no delays, and definitely no emissions test roadblocks when they got to California. CAL FIRE also addressed these rumors on social media, saying no emissions or smog testing was performed, and no vehicles from out of state have been turned around or refused. So, what actually happened? According to CAL FIRE, each truck did have to go through a 15-minute safety inspection upon arrival in California, noting that these trucks don't regularly travel hundreds of miles at a time, and that firefighter safety is their #1 priority. So we can verify, no, California did not reject or delay fire trucks coming from out of state because of emissions tests. In a post on X, the Oregon Fire Marshal confirmed that all 15 strike teams arrived in Southern California on Thursday and began their 24-hour shift early Friday morning. With your Verify, I'm Ariande Till.
Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Weekend Review. I'm Tim Pham. Let's get back now to some of the biggest news stories from the Inland Northwest this past week.
A designated crisis responder is being brought in to help deputies work with those suffering a mental health crisis. It's the first of its kind in Grant County, and staff say they hope to see that role grow in the new year. Meet the newest member of the Grant County Sheriff's Department, Lanny Abundis. She's the first designated crisis responder the Sheriff's Department's ever staffed, thanks to a grant through a mental health clinic in Moses Lake she's worked for. She says her new role provides faster access for resources, some in areas of the county her previous job had a hard time getting to.
The crisis team is located in Moses Lake, so if you had somebody calling in from Cooley, it would be maybe an hour and a half response time. Whereas the corresponding DCR, if they are already on patrol with a deputy, they would be able to respond immediately as soon as the deputy made contact.
Kyle Foreman with the Sheriff's Office says the inspiration for the position came after Grant County deputies say since the pandemic, they continue to respond to calls regarding people in mental health crises.
Deputies were encountering people with mental health crises more frequently, and those were presenting in homes, they were presenting in businesses, they were presenting in public, they were presenting on overpass bridges.
Abundisi's role includes evaluating inmates in the county jail as well as riding with deputies on patrol.
And a lot of the times, these individuals are at a state where they can't access services on their own.
She says her job is to make sure they know.
I have the opportunity to be able to look for other resources for them if they meet a certain criteria for suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation, or gravely disabled.
Foreman says he hopes to see more DCR positions become available across the state. In Grant County, Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Spokane could be well on its way to becoming an industry leader in aerospace innovation and manufacturing. That's thanks to a $48 million grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce.
I don't think of anything this big that has occurred except possibly the creation of the new WSU Medical School.
The program that funded the grant was created by the CHIPS and Science Act, led by Senator Maria Cantwell, and passed by Congress in 2022. The grant funds plans for a Spokane tech hub that will move into the former Triumph Composite Systems building in Airway Heights. The hub will develop and manufacture lighter, more efficient materials for planes and other aerospace technology, and then supply those materials to manufacturers.
Well, there will eventually be a whole new generation of aircraft that will use lighter, stronger, more sustainable materials. And we are at the center of developing those materials and those applications.
There are nearly 50 Pacific Northwest public and private businesses investing in this project, including the Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Corporation and Gonzaga University, which helps create both jobs and education.
Our Idaho universities and our Washington universities and colleges, they all play a significant role. They have been such key players, not only for this tech hub, but for the aerospace, aviation, and manufacturing industry that we already have.
Besides providing a boost to the economy, industries like aerospace manufacturing create a wide variety of jobs for employees of all experience levels.
It's people on the floor, it's entry level, it's mid-level management, it's the scientists, it's the material scientists, it's the engineers, it's the whole spectrum, which is what makes it so exciting.
Senator Cantwell is eyeing 2026 for the facility to be operational. In the newsroom, Caitlin Galloway, KREM 2 News.
The nonprofit Nuestras Raíces hosted WashDOT's meeting on pedestrian bridges Wednesday night. Its location is one that Terrence Lynch with WashDOT says is significant to the project.
The East Central neighborhood is going to see a lot of work and a lot of change coming with the North Spokane corridor.
The $1.5 billion project is decades in the making. It's designed to create a faster route traveling across Spokane, including getting to and from the East Central neighborhood. A part of the project discussed in the meeting involves replacing 2 pedestrian bridges over I-90 at Freya and Hamilton. WashDOT showed attendees previous bridge designs, asking them what features neighbors in Spokane think would provide the best and safest comfort and accessibility when walking. It's something Brianda Perez with Nuestras Raíces says is an important question, but she says the biggest question about the project is one she's excited to see the result of once it's complete.
What is the future for Spokane, for events, community, and especially for community of color here at Spokane?
She says she's proud to have Nuestras Raíces host a meeting designed to inform and hear from community members.
Main focus is helping the Hispanic Latino community, and we feel honored to bring this event and invite the community because we need events like this here at the East Central.
This is WashDOT's 4th meeting on the project. They're continuing to have one the 3rd Wednesday of every month until May. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Here on the border between Spokane and Stevens County, right next to Clayton Fairgrounds, is the first ADA accessible hunting blind in a large part of eastern Washington, which has let the ADA community continue to do what they love.
And so being able to have an accessible place that I can try to get back into the waterfowl hunting is really exciting for me.
Ron Z. Zubrick is a paralyzed Navy veteran who has dealt with spinal injuries since 1983. By 2015, he was paralyzed from the waist down, but Zubrick did not let his situation stop him from going after the activities he enjoyed. In October of 2024, Zubrick says he led the charge with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife to find private land and build an accessible waterfowl hunting blind made for people with disabilities.
The first ever of the aircraft grade of any accessible duck blind in Region 1, but it's the first aircraft grade aluminum one in Eastern Washington.
The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife tells me this is the only blind like this within 10 counties across eastern Washington. The blind sits on private land surrounded by agricultural fields with a spring-fed pond in the middle, making it the perfect setting for both birds and deer.
The thing about the blind that they appreciated was the accessibility into it
and the sitting platforms were easy to maneuver.
Zubrick says on top of the accessibility aspect, the aluminum also makes the blind more resistant to northwest weather. Ken McNaughton, a colleague of Zubrick's, also had a crucial role in this project.
Just because they're in a wheelchair or their legs aren't as mobile as they used to be, doesn't mean you have to give up your passion for the outdoors. So we're making it available to them.
Now, all parties involved want to encourage people who live with disabilities that rain or shine, they can still get outside and hunt.
You can reserve the blind if you want to use it directly on the WDFW website. And if you are a private landowner interested in using your land for a cause like this, the WDFW is eager to start new projects to open up even more access. In Stevens County, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
Thank you for joining us here on KREM 2 Plus. For the KREM 2 News Weekend Review, remember, you can always watch our latest newscast and weather forecast right here on KREM 2 Plus. Just click on the video in the bottom navigation menu. I'm Tim Pham. Thanks for watching.